Welcome to Sunshine Art and Drawing. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of watercolor in this book here. Now this book is called Secret Japan and it's by Zoe de las Casas and it's a coloring in book for adults, and I'm just going to show you some of the ones I've already done. This one here was done in felt tip pen and this next one was done in a mixture of colored pencil and a little bit of watercolor and also outlining in some felt tip pen. Bit of a mixed media kind of thing here. A pretty geisha in a kimono. And I wanted to make it look like she was walking in the rain, so that's why it's kind of a little bit blurred. I think it looks really pretty. And the next one I'm just going to flick through to was just me testing out some of those Faber-Castell markers and doing a bit of a sort of fireworks design, I guess. I haven't finished this one yet, but I want to try and use all the colours and make it look really pretty. I'm just going to flick through some of the other pages now until I get to the one that I want to do. So this book is beautiful. It's all hand drawn, lovely patterns and pictures and little pop culture things. And this is a bonsai tree. So I've decided I would paint this one, but I'm going to use my phone and get really close up so that you can see all the details as I paint this. I'm also going to try and do a little bit of narration while I do that. So I hope you enjoy. So I wanted to show you a very close up way that I use this water brush. So there's a marking on it here that says push, and that's where it's the thinnest. And if you push slightly, the water can gather in that top part, and that will start to drip out the end if you keep pressing. Having one drop is very handy to get one of these watercolor pans started, just to sort of release the pigment that would have dried over the top, and then allow you to pick some up on the end of the brush, like so. And you come over to your artwork and say you want to do this trunk. What I'm going to do is start close to the edge, but not right on the edge, like so. Then you fill in the shape. Again on the other side, close to the edge, but not quite on the edge. And I'll show you in a moment why you do that. And then you grab it closer to the tip so that you have more control to do a little bit of these smaller areas. Okay, this little piece of root that's kind of going into the ground here. As you come back up, you're pushing the paint that you already have down in small strokes towards that edge. A little bit of fluff on the end of my brush, I'm going to grab that in a second. You can probably see that as I'm doing this. Like so. And then what you want to do is let that dry, and as that dries you want to keep working up the trunk. So we go back over to here. As you can see, it's dried a little bit, but there's plenty there to use. And you come back over to your artwork and try and do this trunk that's over here. So I want to start further away because I know that this part is going to be harder. So we want to do this with the driest paper possible, so that you can just do little dots to fill in the space. It's very small, little tiny strokes like this. Perfect for this. Don't worry if you go out the lines, that's something that takes practice. And as you can see, you've now got this part and this part that don't match. But don't worry about that, because you will fix that later. What we're trying to do is a base of colour. So you're trying to essentially get all of this trunk the same colour. So again, you're going to come down here, but on the edge, but not quite. You're leaving kind of a little allowance, so that you won't go over the edge. I would give this a try just holding my phone close to the paper and see if that helps. I noticed that a lot of artwork is top down, and I thought that might be a little bit more difficult to see what I'm doing here. That looks like a face. I'm going to add to that. I'm going to make a little bit of a dot there because that to me looks like a face, and we can make that look more like a face. So I added a little bit more water to this because it was drying out. So I just had to speed it up a bit here because it was going to be quite a long video, but you kind of get the idea of what I do, and I'll give you a bit more detail. So for the trunk in the middle, once you've finished doing all of the base brown color that you've done, you'll come back with a bit more thicker, more pigmented paint on your brush and then touch up all of the areas. As you can see, I've got a bit more pigment on my brush now, and I'm touching up all the areas that I've already painted to give them a much more even coat of color. And because the paper is already wet where you're putting the paint, it doesn't spread any further than where you've put it, and it all kind of stays together. Here I'm mixing the black and the brown together to make a kind of dirty brown color that I'm using for the dirt in the bottom of the pot, just where that lovely trunk is growing out of. And again, I did sort of a thin layer of one color, and now I'm coming back in with the two colors mixed together and making it look a bit more patchy like dirt would look. Once you want to take out all the color that's in your brush, you can either just squeeze your brush and that'll push clean water through and clean it out. Or the other thing that you can do is just with a piece of paper or a piece of paper towel, you can paint the rest of the paint out. Essentially just sort of brushing your brush against the paper until all the paint comes off. Usually a scrap bit of paper or a bit of paper towel is perfect for that. I didn't really bother because I was only using a few colours and they're all pretty dark colours, so I just kind of pushed the water out the end of the brush and that made it pretty good. Here with this blue, I'm doing it in layers of each section just to kind of make it all the paper wet, and then I come back with a bit more blue and touch it up. The only thing you might come across when you're doing this is the paper might get too wet and then it starts to break down, as you can see here. That's because this isn't watercolor paper, it's just a coloring book. So you got to be a bit careful. That's why the aqua brush is helpful for this, because it doesn't put too much water onto your page, it only puts a little bit where you need it. And here I'm taking the lightest green and I'm going to do just the little sheets at the top. So all the new growth will be this bright green colour, just to make it look a bit more healthy and vibrant. And then once I've done all that sort of new growth in that light green, I grabbed this sort of darker forest green. I did a bunch more of the leaves. These are the kind of older leaves, the ones that are a bit more weathered. Brush them all over. And I was just picking them out randomly. There was no sort of method, just kind of which ones I thought would look good. And then I thought to myself, I want this to look bright and cheerful. So here I'm just slowing down a little bit just to show you close up what it looks like when I'm painting each one. I'm really just touching each leaf and dragging down a little bit, and that makes it so it's like a leaf shape when you lift the brush up. And it's very, very quick and easy to do. Now here I wanted it to be lighter. I was going to go darker, but I thought I'll go the forest green mixed with yellow, and that made a nice bright colour as well. I thought that was kind of a little bit brighter than the light green and will give a bit of a bright look to this artwork rather than being a sort of a dull green. I thought that looked much more cheerful. And these palette paints, it's perfectly fine to mix them in the palette wells. It's a good way of practicing your mixing. You also get sort of different colours as the colour that you're mixing, sort of the green wears out and you're just pulling up yellow. That comes out really pretty as well. So as I was working my way towards the top, the colour that I was mixing was getting more and more yellow as the green sort of wore out. And that way I was getting a much more kind of darker at the bottom, working its way to lighter towards the top where the sun would be. I thought that looked a bit more natural. And I'm just touching in all these little leaves, just a little touch, maybe a little swirl. And here I'm just going to mix that up a bit more and get a bit more green in there because I want to do the other side, and I wanted to make sure that wasn't too bright before I got to the top. So I added a bit more green in, so all of these are a little bit greeny yellow. And then when I did the very top, I went for a much more yellow colour. Now you want to do your lightest colours last when you do watercolour. So as you can see, the green is slowly starting to wear out and it's just going yellow as I'm doing these. I'm just going to slow it down a bit more so you can see each one being done. And here I'll just get a bit more closer. So as you can see, I'm really just doing kind of like a little swipe or a little swirl. I'm not worrying too much about being in the lines because of the way this is drawn. It's a little bit more sort of sketchy and rougher. So I think it looks okay just to kind of dot the leaves in with the brush. And once you've done all of the leaves that you can see, just have a quick scan over your artwork for any that you've missed. I missed a few here and there. So I just went through and painted any ones that I'd missed. There's one in the middle at the bottom that I've missed that I can see, there he is. And any more that you can see that you might have missed out. It just makes it look a bit more full if you make sure that any leaves are coloured, and there's a couple over there that I missed as well. Just pop that there. And I'm pretty much done. I'm just showing you now that this is what it looks like as it's wet. So it's still, all of the paint is quite wet on the page. If I was to touch it, it would smear. So I'm going to let it dry for a bit and see how that looks. This is all completely dry to the touch. And as you can see, the spots where it looked like the colours were going to run into each other have kind of cleared up now. You'll find that it looks better once it's dry. I recommend letting your artwork dry before you take the final photo because that will determine how it actually looks. When paint is wet, it always looks a bit darker, so as it dries you'll find that it's a lot lighter. And I think this looks really pretty and bright and fresh. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thanks so much for watching. Have a sunshiny day.